Hey, wow, just like that. It just is amazing how quickly a couple days go by. Thanks for joining here today on the DPB show. We have a we have a lot to talk about today, and I'm super excited about what lies ahead for the DPB show. We're going to do a new format here. Something that needs to be done. Many of you that listen to me on the radio know that the radio station no longer that I was on has live local talent. Therefore, we have a void now of having those who are seeking office, whether that be at the city council level, the town council level, the village boards, the library boards, the county board, state rep races, state senate races, congressional races, U.S. Senate races. There's no longer a venue for them to appear to tell you, our loyal listeners, at the DPB show exactly what they're about, why it is that they are seeking a public office, why they want to represent you. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick up the slack. It's because it's that important. You know, I never entered the arena of politics because I wanted to propel myself to a higher level. And I think, unfortunately, that's what politics has become in a lot of arenas, and that is something that I'm not going to say I detested, but it seems to be counterintuitive about what we're truly to be if we're a public servant, if we're a servant leader. We are to represent you, our constituents, the people who are the consent of the governed, right? You're the ones who the Constitution talks about. We are the ones, I should say, not you. We are the ones. The people are we the people. And therefore, after an event that took place this past Saturday, I it was a breakfast held out at the DoubleTree here locally. If you don't know, I reside in Normal, Illinois, Bloomington, Normal, Illinois, Central Illinois, McLean County. I know many of you do not reside in around where I live, but it's uh, I just took a look over at my which is another part of my show that I want to get to today. I just got a text message from my good friend Darren Bailey. But I don't want to get off mark here. I don't want to bury the lead, as the old saying goes. I went to this breakfast, and all the candidates who were seeking office, from county board all the way up to Congress, they had 3 to 4 minutes. And the room was fairly packed. There were over 100 people, or close to 100 people, I should say. I don't know if it was over 100 people. I don't want to exaggerate, but it was a good crowd, a good turnout. And they had 3 to 4 minutes to tell everyone there in the room why it is that they should be selected, why you as a voter should vote for them. And I came away from that knowing what was transpiring in the local market, the radio market. And I said, wow, as Republicans, as conservatives, as Christian conservatives, first and foremost, but then as Republicans, we have to have a means of communicating about the different candidates. And I'm kind of also buying some time because I'm hopeful that one of my interviews will jump on. I was going to have him first, but I might have to actually move him to the second position because we do have a candidate for County Board District 3. He's in the waiting room. I can see him. He's going to give me a thumbs up so I know that he can hear me. But George went, but this is going to be the place. McLean County Republican Party, we're going to be podcasting on their Facebook page too, and also Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, and X. But we're going to be pushing information out to you because we no longer have the means of radio. We already know that we're at odds with most of the other media sources in and around Central Illinois. They're not favorable to the cause of conservative Republican values. So we're going to pick up the slack. That's going to be us. So since I do have George Wint of the 3rd District on, I will be having Chad Burke. He is a candidate for the 5th County Board district. He has not joined us yet. I know he's got some technical difficulties. I'm hoping that Kat Peterson can work that out behind the scenes while we're doing this. But I'm going to bring George on. I'm going to add him to the stage. There he is, George.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Hello,
okay?
everybody.
There he is. Look at that. You sound good, George.
Well, I feel good.
Hey, George, you're used to this, right? Things change quickly.
Well,
You thought you were going to be second, and now you're first.
I've been at this for quite a while. I did run Nixon's campaign up in Rock Island County in 1972, and then I ran Reagan's campaign in 1980. And so I've been at Republican politics for quite a while. I personally enjoy now being on the county board. And the only reason I'm on the county board is when they had a vacancy in my district, the county chairman recommended to Matt Sorensen, who was the chairman, that they asked me to run. And I told him I'd only run in the event that they would get me appointed before the current person served more than 2 years, because that made it so I had to run in that November to be elected. And Matt was kind of a little surprised at that, because he said most people would just like to serve out the other 2 years of that term. And I said, well, I really can't see myself on a board for a whole 2 years without being elected. I wanted the district to have a choice. And so I was on the November ballot that same year. Anyway, that's my history.
Well, look at that, George. Already the McLean County Republican Party says, thanks for being a servant leader. Hey, gotta love it. And Ryan McKenzie, I'm working on getting some of them also. Great idea. If local radio can't have them, we'll get them on. I'm sure you heard my introduction, George. You know, because you've been so involved and so instrumental in the Republican politics in general, George. Obviously, I think you're across the aisle. People respect, they know who you are, they know where you stand. You've got a race now for County Board District 3 in McLean County. Is this the first time you've ever been primaried?
Yes, it is the first time I've ever been primaried. And I'm a little older, and I had been sick, but I'm a cancer survivor. And as my doctors say, I'm a miracle, because I'm almost back to the same health that any person my age would be. And my biggest concern is we're in a situation where right now we have a tie, 10-10 tie on the board. And I think we need to keep all the experienced people that we have possibly on the board, because we're in danger territory when we don't have a majority of Republicans on the board. So I think we need to keep everybody that has got a history of the board.
Hey, George, I'd like to say it this way, because I think I'm going to try to coin this. George Wendt is a little more like Trump and a little less like Biden.
Well, I like that compliment. That's fine with me.
Hey, George, you've already been on for at least 3 or 4 minutes, and you haven't forgotten where you're at or where you're supposed to be at, and you've been able to somewhat get across the point. But George, I think the what you bring up about the county board, knowing that we're in a 10-10 position, that wasn't always the case for the county board. Give us a little historical perspective on when you entered the county board and kind of the disparity between Republicans and Democrats.
Well, when I first got on the board, we had about a 14 to 6 majority, but the population of McLean County has shifted quite a bit. And the city of Normal and the city of Bloomington have basically become Democratic. And our outer lane region is pretty heavy Republican. The fact we've got a problem here in McLean County because of the concentration of the Democrats and where they are. And we've been losing in those areas. Now, we still have a chance to win. We've got 5 good candidates running now, and hopefully we can get at least 2 or 3 of those elected. Uh, all we need is 2 and we'll have 11. I'd sure like it if we got to 5 so that we would have a little bit better majority of Republicans. The whole county, if you look at the voting, 20 years ago when I first came here, well, I came here in 1992, I guess it was. We had about a 20,000 vote margin in McLean County. We're down to about a 7,000 vote margin. 10,000 is in the outer county, and then we make up for that in the city. I think Bloomington is about 2,000 and Normal is about 1,000 Democratic. So we still countywide have about a 7,000 majority on the Democrats. We got to make sure we get all our voters out. And we can win some of those 5 seats that we have other candidates in.
So, George, obviously you've seen this, you're a witness to this. So the overall shifting that has taken place, where now we have more Democrat strongholds in what would be considered the urban areas of Bloomington, Normal. Why do you think that is? Why, you've been around politics long enough. Uh, you've seen enough to make good judgments on why we have almost flip-flop, because when I moved to McLean County, it was definitely 85, maybe closer to 90% Republican versus Democrat.
Well, the big shift, if you look at it, is the Republicans have been dying off or moving to Florida. Uh, if you look at the age brackets of the current Republicans, in the 65 and older, we have a huge amount of Republicans. The Democrats usually have a much smaller in the 65 and older. And of course, as time goes on, we lose them either by death or retiring to Florida or other states. And what we need to do is to get to the young people and get them to understand that the Republican Party is really the best place to be. And I tell you, when I ran the Nixon campaign in 1972 up in the Quad City area, what we did there, of course, the Union was very heavy in the Rockland County area. And of course, the Democrats put up a real liberal. And so we really concentrated on the UAW Democrats. And I think we got a huge majority of that for Nixon because he actually carried Rock Island County by 55 to 45%. Well, the state went 57%. And Rock Island County normally would be just the opposite on a presidential level. But I think getting to the UAW Democrats and explaining, well, once you explain what McGovern was for, we won their votes over.
Which is the good point, George. I think that especially for those that are joining us, and I so appreciate everyone tuning in today at the DPB show. I have George Wendt. He's running for County Board District number 3 in McLean County, Illinois. This is going to be something new. I'm hoping to get Chad Burke. He's running as a candidate for District 5. But George, your point about George McGovern, that was a time in this country when there was a lot of upheaval. You were talking about the Vietnam War era. There was a lot of discontent and divide in our nation, which we find now, especially amongst the younger crowd. But convincing young people that, the 3 biggest issues I think we face right now is the economy. I know that most young people have visions of owning a home someday. I know that they have visions of not pedaling a bicycle and would rather have a car that they could afford to put gas into. I know that they say the future is education. I know they realize that an educated society is a better society. And those three issues of education and economy and crime, I left out crime. Our streets are turning in a different direction. We are seeing through the Safety Act in Illinois, and obviously here in McLean County locally, we're seeing the effects of no cash bail. We fully haven't seen how that looks because this all just started January 1st. But those are three issues that I think young people are concerned about, don't you?
Yes, I think that when they go to the gas station and start to fill up their car, it hurts. And some of the other things I know, my wife says when she gets back from the grocery store, she says, "Wow, uh,
Wow. Yeah. What else do you say?
yeah, what? Yeah, well, wow means boy, we really spent some money today." We're fortunate; we're retired, and we don't have that problem so much. But I feel so. I've got two kids that live here in Illinois, and they've got young kids, and I know their budgets are tight. I mean, they've explained it to me is that they can't do everything that they would like to do with they each have three kids, and it's a tough time for young families and stuff to get along. So I think Biden is helping us out a little bit by his economic policies. It should get to these younger voters, and I hope that we have the ability to contact them and get them involved in the election process.
Well, George, I know that you've been part of the election process for a good number of years. You gave us the information all the way back to 1972. But here locally, George, you not only sit on the county board currently in this 10 to 10 board uh, differential, which is basically 10 Republicans, 10 Democrats. But you're also a member of the McLean County Republican Party, where you hold a position as vice chair of Bloomington, um, and you are a precinct committeeman. How important is it for the listening audience to be a part, to get activated? Because, I heard this today. A lot of people say the pendulum's going to swing back. It's not going to swing back unless there are people that are there pushing that pendulum back. We have to get involved. And so tell us the importance of a precinct committeeman, a vice chair position, whatever that might be, getting involved in the local party.
Well, right now we unfortunately the state mandated that we uh, lower our number of voters in each precinct, and then it turned out that we increased the number of precinct committeemen by about 20. So now we have about 120 precinct committeemen. And unfortunately, we've only got 45, I think, now. Uh, One of the jobs of the vice chairs, I'm vice chair of what we call West, and that's to get people to be precinct committeemen. And as soon as this primary is over, I'm going to be working on to fill some of the spots in the West that we don't have now. But it's very important to get people in these precincts so that they can contact their voters and make sure that they get out to vote. So we will be hopefully working very hard after the election.
Well, and I know that you've worked very hard because you're someone who has a district, or I should say, as the vice chair, you have, is it 24 or 29 precincts?
It's I think it's now 29. It used to be
29.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
you've added
increased.
some precincts. So
Yeah,
you're trying to fill those spots. And precinct committee
correct.
people, for our listeners, um, precinct committee people are truly the ones who are going to be the drivers. They're not the point of the spear, but they're the shaft of the spear, because that's who goes out into their precincts and delivers the message of what's currently happening in the state of our state, our county, our municipalities. And they're the ones who truly encourage others to get involved in the process, specifically, first and foremost, to get out and vote. And if you
Right.
only have 42 out of 120 precincts with precinct committee people, you're in an uphill climb. And that's, I believe, why it is that we see such voter hesitancy, apathy, whatever you want to call it, in these past elections, is because we don't have people activated. And especially, as you mentioned, younger people. We're not getting the younger people involved.
Well, I'll say this, it is an age problem because when we had a lot more precincts at certain times filled, but I can tell you a lot of them have died and a lot of them have moved out of the state. So we've had that older population that had been precinct committeemen for years. Well, we lost them either by moving out or by dying. So it's been harder to replace them with the younger people. And but I'm hoping that with everything that's going on is that they'll understand that we need as many people as we possibly can, not only precinct committeemen, but we need volunteers for election day. I mean, that's a very important time.
And
Uh,
election judges. I mean, even
and
if you don't want to serve as a precinct committee person, we need Republican election judges because
that's
obviously that's who monitors and oversees election day. But not only election day, because now we have 40 days, what I term the election season, where we have the ability to go to the polling places. Now, granted, it's not your precinct, it's a designated place like the county building or Eastland Mall here in McLean County, and you can cast your vote early. So there are judges there at that time. We have the ability to process the vote by mail ballots. Obviously, that has become popular here recently because of COVID, which it was designed to be that way. I mean, ultimately, we know there's legislation that is pending that would allow us to become a vote by mail state, meaning that we would no longer go to the precincts. We wouldn't go to a voting center. We would all submit our votes via by mail, which hopefully we can all agree. And even the Democrats came out 10 years ago and said that that is not a good path to go down. A full vote by mail. I believe at some point we will get back to election day rather than election season, but for now, it is what it is, right, George? So we need to
right.
get involved.
Yeah, and unfortunately, mailing out ballots to everybody that's on the rolls just is very costly, first of all. Second, it's very dangerous as far as uh, you can't keep your rolls totally up to date because we have people dying all the time. We have people moving all the time. We have kids that move out. And I know on my kids, when we first got here, I had, I think it was three of them that were voting age, and we had them registered right away. Well, the thing is, they moved on, and for a period of time, they were still on the rolls. And of course, as soon as I got a card from the county for them, I mailed it back to tell them that they were no longer here. Now, what happens, a lot of people don't do that. And so their kids, I know I look sometimes at the rolls in my district and I'll have, uh, I just looked at one the other day and they had two kids at home or two kids on the rolls. And when I called and talked to them, both kids had moved on. Now they will get taken off this year because I think they did mail back the card to the county, and we try. The clerks try to get the people that die off the rolls, but they don't get them. They don't get them all.
Well, you're right. We have a very transient society. Therefore, we're going to constantly be battling the voter rolls. But more importantly, George, and I know this is kind of where I believe you're going with it, is the chain of custody.
Yeah.
We send out thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands, and in the state of Illinois, if there are roughly 8 million registered voters, we're sending out 8 million ballots to different addresses. How do you control all of that? And then to think, is the United States Postal Service in a position to handle that inundation of ballots, especially if we continue to leave the voting season as 40 days, processing all the mail, getting it to the county clerk's office, getting those ballots opened up, processed, looked at, dual signature verification, that whole process we have to go through now. It is daunting to think that you would do that at the level of 8 million. I know there were problems up in the Cicero vote by mail processing center in Cook County with just a 500,000 vote by mail ballots and how they could handle all of those. I notice a commenter is my wonderful wife. People are warm to neighbors who knock on their doors. I know you have found that out. McLean County Republican Party is with us in the chat. George, I don't know if you can see the chat on your end, but they say go to the McLean County website to find out more about serving as election judge, poll watcher, or precinct committee person, and it gives you that address. My beautiful wife is also letting us know that poll watching class March 7th, I'll put that up, March 7th, at the GOP office. Sign up on the McLean County Republican Party website. A little typo. Now there is a point where, and I have to push back, and obviously, George, you've seen this. You had just alluded to people. When you see that there are voters on the voter rolls that might have a date, and I know that there have been multiple people working with the data, and they've seen people on the voter rolls still that have birth dates in the early 1900s. Those are the ones we need to be most concerned about, because if those ballots actually show up and are voted, then I think that's what the concern is, and to have people on the ballots and on the rolls, that is ultimately what we hope all county clerks across 102 counties are working to make sure that that data is clean, and or at least the data rolls are as up to date as they can be. Hey, George, I know we're up against bringing Chad on. I don't see that he's entered the waiting room yet, but you've got this race.
Okay, let me make a comment though about
go ahead.
this. One thing, we're very fortunate, and I can attest to this. We have one of the best county clerks that I've ever worked with. And I tell you, I've worked with probably 20 or 30 different counties, because a couple times I've run some races that covered 20 or 30 counties. And she does a fabulous job. She is just terrific. And I'm finding that the Bloomington Election Commission seems to be doing a pretty good job. But it's a tough one, because of the if we ever get where they mail out the ballots, it is going to be really terrible. It's bad enough that I think not too long ago, they had to mail out applications to everybody. And it was about a lot better back in the days when you had to get if you had a mail-in ballot, it was delivered to your precinct on election day, and the judges there checked to see if it was a good ballot or not. But anyway, we'll work on it. The Republican Party is going to work on trying to get everybody to the polls.
Well, and I think that ultimately is the goal as we go forward, knowing what we're up against. This isn't a time to point fingers. This is a time to understand the process. And I do believe, in light of the lawsuit filed by Judicial Watch, George, I think I told you about that. Tom Fenton of Judicial Watch brought suit against the Illinois State Board of Elections. And we're not talking about specific county clerks, but the State Board of Elections, who actually has the data rolls, who they get all of those voting rolls from the county clerks. They were found to not be releasing that data in a timely manner. And once they were able to get the Illinois State Board of Elections to free up the voter rolls, they have found that we have in Illinois almost 800,000 inactive voters. Now, that encompasses a whole nother show, but that's a lot of people that need to be verified. And we don't want to get in a position where we're sending out 800,000 additional ballots that we don't know where they're going or if they're indeed ending up in the hands of someone that's going to be forthright in putting that ballot back in the mailbox or not putting it in a drop box. But George, your campaign right now, you, for the first time, as we talked about, are facing a primary challenger to your county board seat. I know that there are many things that you can tell us about what you've done going forward. You had said that we need to make sure that we hold at least a 10-10 tie. We're hopeful to pick up a couple other seats, namely the gentleman who hopefully will be with us later in the show, Chad Burke, who's running in the 5th district. But it's
Well,
essential that people know about George Wendt. Obviously, I know the age factor, you brought that up, has been a concern for some of your naysayers, but tell us about George. It looks like you can
well,
handle yourself pretty well.
yeah, I'll tell you what, the two things that I'm really proud of. Number one is the tax rate is still the same as it was when I joined the board. Early in my career, being appointed, I got to looking at the budget and it showed that we had an increase of our income by $1.4 million from the year before, or 1.1 million, excuse me, 1.1. And they were wanting to spend 1.4 million more. And I thought that's really kind of ridiculous. We got that huge amount of increase. Why would we want to spend more than that increase? Well, I couldn't get anybody's attention. I was just the first, I had just been on the board very shortly. So what I ended up doing is I wrote a letter to the editor and explained the situation. And I'll be darned if they didn't call, they had to call the committees back and they found $350,000 that they didn't have to spend. So we kept the rate the same that year. The next several years, anytime that occurred where they were going to raise the rate, the first thing I did was I asked the administration how much we had to reduce. I think the second year was 200,000. And I have to give credit to another member found 200,000 that we could take out of the budget. Anyway, so we kept the rate the same, and I'm proud of that. The second thing that I think was really is very important, when I got sick about 10 years ago, we didn't have the ability to call in our vote or our from our district. And I knew that the state statute allowed for call in for certain things. Turned out you could set up a remote call in for somebody that was sick or a family emergency, or if you're out of the county on county business. So I brought that attention to the board, and I did have one board member that was opposing it particularly, and they weren't sure they wanted it. He said to me, "George, you could really disrupt the meeting." And my response to him was, "If you think I can do that on the phone, just think what I could do if I was at the board meeting." Well, there was a big chuckle on that one, and they passed it and allowed that. And several other people have used it since then. And I tell you, there was a couple times I was in the hospital, even when I was getting my chemo treatment. There was a board meeting that I called into. It wasn't exactly the first thing I wanted to do, but what the reason I tried to call into all the meetings that I could possibly do was I didn't want my constituents to lose their vote. And that's the main reason I wanted that call in. And we have that now. And right now, one of the problems with it is and I don't think the state allows it yet, but the call-in people don't count for the quorum. And that can create a problem if we ever have a situation like the virus again, where we can't get together. So we're going to try to get that changed. Hopefully, that will be. Anyway, those are two of the things that I'm proud of.
Well, and I think there's a lot more that is out there, George. I think that, once again, I don't think you want to be board member for 2 more terms, do you?
Oh, I think this is this may be
This
enough.
is it. This is it. This is the final hurrah. And obviously, as I just shared with our audience, George, have sat with you at board meetings for the McLean County Republican Party. There is no question in my mind that you are fully capable of handling the responsibilities and the duties that are before you. I do believe that it is good to have someone who is you have your finger on the pulse, especially of your district, but also of your responsibilities as vice chair. I know that you continue to reach out, as my wife said above, that it's important to be constantly in contact. And this is something, this technology, what we're doing right
Oh, yeah.
here, this didn't exist, George. Could you imagine having a couple hundred people on a call like this,
Oh, yeah.
so you could be
Yeah.
in the people in the chat room? It's always good to see the people chatting, and you could be getting the information, the knowledge that we need to inform people about what lies ahead, what legislation's out there, what bills are out there, what is being proposed, resolutions at the county level, especially when we spoke about the pressure that is being put on our families here in McLean County to flip the bill for so many things. And it's just not what the expenditures of the county, it's the city tax, it's the state
Oh,
tax, it's the fact that we reside in Illinois
yeah.
and have we're taxed to death, as the old show that was put forth by Fox News up in Chicago. We are truly taxed to death, and nobody wants any more taxes. Obviously, I don't know who signs up for that, because I believe that most people have said no more, no more. And I know that you're someone that's going to continue to battle and fight for the residents here in McLean County.
Well, I'll tell you this, as my younger brother, who was on the county board up in Rockland County, said to me when there was a discussion about my health and whether I could do this and that and the other, he says, it's not like you got your thumb on the nuclear button. So, yes, we're dealing with important issues for our people, but it's not like what he said is,
It's not like Joe Biden. No,
yeah,
no, I can unequivocally say I'd rather have George Wendt right now in Washington, D.C. than Joe Biden. You've got my vote.
thank you, David.
As I mentioned, you're more of a Trump than you are a Biden, and this time that we've spent together has proven that. Hey, George, I know that this has been more time than I thought, and I noticed that Chad is having difficulties trying to navigate it. Then, hey, George, there you go. No slam on Chad. He's a few years younger than you. He couldn't figure out how to get on the air with me on the streaming. I'm taking a little poke at him. I know he does his own podcast when it comes to Gun Saves Lives, but for some reason, this format has got him a little perplexed. But George Wendt, George, how young are you today?
I'm 83.
You're 83. So are you the same age as Biden? Is Biden 83? Is
I
that the
think
same
we're
age?
about the same age, yeah.
You're about the same age. Well,
But I can
you've
walk
got,
down the steps without falling.
and you're still driving, and you're still, yes, very
Still
good.
driving, yes.
Hey, George, kudos to you. Thank you for coming on. I'm going to say goodbye for now, but would love to have you come back. I know there's just so much knowledge and wisdom you have in regards to elections. And I think you have seen, what we're seeing today is unique. There's no question about it. But you have been through in the trenches. You've been battling this for so many years.
Yeah, this is,
I think it's good to have somebody like you that has the wisdom, the knowledge, and the fortitude
well,
to to give us the advice that we need, especially in times such as these.
Well, this has been my hobby is politics. So,
Well, you do it very well. Well, thank you, George. I'm gonna take you off the stage real quick and put myself back on.
all right.
Uh, but thank you. And once again, George, if people want to get in contact with you, how do they go about doing that?
Well, I have a email address that's real simple. It's Went Farm. You got to remember to put the D in. That's a German thing. WNDT farm at Gmail. Then I have a phone number that I make available 309 830 6685. And feel free to call me or feel free to email me. I try to get right back to anybody that does that because I think they deserve, if they take the time to get in touch with me, they deserve somebody to them. So,
Well, if you can see over there in the comment section, George, there's 3 times it says Went Farm at Gmail. Boy, the McLean County Republican Party was quick enough. Hey, George, real quick. So I've got it there. Give me the phone number again where they can contact you.
309
Okay.
830
Okay.
6685.
All right. I will also put that in there. George, I know that you will be getting shout outs and people will be getting in contact with you. Uh, and there's, like I said, prepare yourself because this man has been around the block and has the ins and outs. And I love to sit. And, if you're fortunate enough, you'll also have an audience with his wife, as I have. And together, the two of them are a dynamic team. And it impresses me what they have done as public servants for our community. Let's continue to support George and his endeavors. George, like I said, this is goodbye for now, but not goodbye forever. We're going to get you back on the show.
Thank you for having me, David.
You're welcome. And we look forward to having you back on soon because we need to have our audience hear more about the days of Eisenhower. Hey, you take care, my friend.
About that.
Yes, you take care. Hey, all right. As I said, I was hopeful that Chad Burke would be able to join us. This is exciting because as I was just saying, we have the ability to reach out, to expand our footprint. We want to talk about more in 2024. This is the way we get more in 2024. We reach, we do things that we're not comfortable with. We get comfortable being uncomfortable. I'll tell you, I am. When I get on this when I get on this podcast at 4 o'clock, it's unnerving. I think you might be able to tell that. If you do, so what? Because I don't care. Because it's not about me. It's about you. It's about the people out there that we're trying to serve, that we're trying to restore not only our cities, our towns, our villages, our schools, our counties, our state, our nation. We want to get back to the principles of this thing right here, the Constitution of the United States. We want to hear and be a society that's governed by law and order. And unfortunately, we're seeing that slip away. And why is that? Because we've allowed others to dictate, to steal the show. We know we have the greatest show of all. It is called freedom. It's called liberty. It's called the pursuit of happiness. And those are the rights that are guaranteed us as citizens of this great country. And this is by far the greatest country on the face of the earth. If that weren't the case, then why would we have an invasion of our southern border? Why would so many people want to come to our country, come to our communities? Because they know that this is the land of the land and the home of the brave and the free. And they've seen it. They've watched it unfold. They still see it, even amongst the craziness that goes on. They still see that this is the land of opportunity. That's what they used to call the land of Lincoln, the land of opportunity. I've many times challenged Governor Pritzker on his social media page. Now, whether he sees it or not, I don't know. I don't care. I know others do. It's not. I'm not putting it out there for Governor Pritzker. I'm putting it out there for the third party people, the people who are still, maybe somewhat out there trying to figure out how to vote. And that is that it's the land of make believe because it really doesn't hold up against the weight of the laws that we have on the books. We're constantly trying to circumvent what has been put forth for many years that shows the way to live in a just society. And unfortunately, that's not where we're at right now. But we will be. I'm confident that through this podcast and many others like it, the ability to motivate and to mobilize many voters out there, locally, statewide, nationally, that we're going to see something happen in 2024. As I said at the beginning of this year, more in 2024. We're going to have more in 2024. It is going to be abundance. We are going to see uh, precinct committee people getting involved. We're going to see other people taking an interest in how we are governed, how it is that we ended up in the place we are with the economy of scales that we have, with the school systems not being able to get students up to the proficiency levels, the grade levels that they're at, that we'll see that the gas pumps aren't controlled by our government basically dictating the price of fuel by shutting down resources that we know are God given. This country has been blessed beyond, and not to say that other countries aren't blessed, but this country has an abundance. And with an abundance, much is expected, right? As good stewards of the earth, we are to share, we are to contribute. The reason that we have people starving in the United States, which is hard for me to fathom, but is because we we don't take advantage of the resources through growth and small business and uh, stimulating more growth and more business. Instead, we have a government that wants to take away the growth. They want to control everything. And that's what we're hopeful. The principles that we believe in as Republicans are tried and true. As I've mentioned many times on my show, if the liberal ways of doing things worked, then why aren't they working? Our state has been controlled by the Democrat Party for over 20 years. They've had a supermajority now for at least the last, I think, 6 years since Rauner. Um, so we know the the liberal way of doing things has failed. It's failed miserably. We've seen it now at the national level. 3 years of Biden, we know that has failed. As George has pointed out, a 10-10 tie on the county board. We know that at a county level, it's not nearly like the state where they control other issues that go beyond county-wide issues that deal more at the level of sanctuary status, dealing with the right to life, which has totally gotten away from our General Assembly. We used to be a state that stood firm and protected life. That is no longer the case. No matter what you want to call it, you can call it women's health issues and everything else, but still, it involves a life. However, you want to try to get around it, it is at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It is a life, and it's a life that is meaningful, just like yours was a life that was meaningful, just like mine was a life that was meaningful. And we're thankful that our mothers chose to carry us to term. If not, where would we be? That's the best question I think that's out there. If not for that decision, where would I be today? Well, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be with you. And I'm so thankful to be with you. Hey, as I said, I don't know if Chad is going to make it, so I want to just move ahead and share with you some things that have come up today. And And I did receive this message, and I think I want to be forthright and honest with you, and I need to share this because you guys know how passionate I am as far as a Darren Bailey supporter. Darren Bailey is by far one of my closest mentors, someone who I really lean into and have for the last 7 years, especially as it pertains to melding the worlds of faith and politics. But Darren sent me a message just a few minutes ago, and that was partly because I had sent him a message. I had received an announcement that many of you may or may not be aware of. Uh, President Donald J. Trump has come out on his Truth Social page and has given Congressman Mike Bost an endorsement. He said that Mike is doing a fantastic job representing the great people of the 12th Congressional District. While I like and respect Darren Bailey and was proud to campaign for him in 2022, that was for the governor's race, Mike Bost was one of the first House committee chairmen to endorse my campaign. And Mike was a stalwart supporter of our America First agenda during the record setting administration. As chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee, Mike is doing an incredible job providing our brave and patriotic veterans with the care they deserve. He is working hard to secure the border, champion American agriculture, strengthen the military, grow the economy, and protect and defend our under siege Second Amendment. Mike Boss has my complete and total endorsement. That was kind of shocking. Obviously, took me by surprise. I didn't realize both Darren Bailey and Mike Bost are delegates in the 12th congressional district, so they both will show up on the ballot, not only as the congressional candidate, but as a delegate for President Donald J. Trump. I don't know what led to this because we're already into early voting season, and that is upon us. Why it is at this time that Trump came out and endorsed him. Trump is Trump. As I've always said, I agree with President Trump most of the time, but not all the time. And when it comes to this particular endorsement, I don't agree with him. And that's okay. I'm an alternate delegate. That's not going to change. I mean, I'm sure that Darren doesn't agree with him. In fact, Darren, as I share with you, told him down at Mar-a-Lago, President Trump, I don't believe you have this one right. He said, Mike is not the person. He might have started out back in 2016 because Mike's been in Congress now 10 years. He was with the General Assembly down in Springfield for 20. That qualified him for a state-funded pension, which I'm pretty certain, well, no, I'm very certain that Mike currently receives a state-funded pension. He was on the county board, and I can't remember what county Mike resided in, but he was on the county board for 14 years. No, this isn't bashing a fellow Republican. This is just pointing out it's out there. Go out to his Liberty score. Go out and see what Conservative Review has for Mike Bost. He finishes 1 percentage point above Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney's 53% on her Liberty score. Mike Bost is 54%. I don't know where this endorsement came from, but obviously, like I said, I'm not always going to agree 100% of the time with Trump. He is the guy that I support for the nomination, the Republican nomination for the Republican Party. I will be at the convention to raise my hand. But as far as this race goes, down in the 12th Congressional District, my friend Darren Bailey has the endorsement of Mary Miller, Congresswoman Miller. She's part of the Freedom Caucus, the Congressional Freedom Caucus in Washington, D.C. He just recently, last week, received the endorsement of Matt Gaetz because we know there are people that are in DC. They're few and far between. They're committed to restoring Washington, are committed. And I'm not saying that President Trump isn't, because he is. He's the first one who has come along and pointed out what is happening with the establishment, with the deep state, with the swamp in Washington, D.C. So yeah, that was a message I received as I had sent out to Darren, and I'll go ahead and read my message that I shared with him. praying with and for you and the entire Bailey for Illinois team. God first, period. Mike Bost has been exposed. He can't hide from or run on his record. I gave the emojis of prayer hands across a heart and the American flag. That was at 2:48 p.m. At 4 o'clock, my friend sent me back a message. Imagine that, the start of my show. It said, blessings, exclamation point. We will win. That's what I love about Darren Bailey. That's why I continue to fight for the people of Illinois. That's why I know that you guys continue to join me, because you realize that it isn't about me. It's not about Darren. I've heard him say this over and over and over and over and over again. How many overs can I put in there? It's not about me. It's not about Darren. It's about us. It's about we. It's about we, the people. That's what this document states. It's about us. If we are going to have the America that we know, the land of the free, the home of the brave, then it's up to us. We can't wait for tomorrow. We've got to engage. Darren constantly on the campaign trail for governor was encouraging people to get involved, whether it's on a school board, whether it's go to a school board meeting, whether it's pass out pamphlets for a candidate, whether it's support a candidate, as George Wendt was just saying, is if it's volunteering for your local Republican Party, go and do it. The time is now. Don't wait. We don't have time. The red wave is not coming. You are the red wave. Every one of us is our own red wave. We're the pebble thrown into that great mass of water that creates the ripples. We are the ripple effect. And if it's not going to be us, then who's it going to be? And if not now, when? We've got to get involved. Blessings to my friend Darren Bailey. He's always held the position of representing the people, but first and foremost, never wavering in his commitment to God. God first. And when we can continue to have people put God back into our schools, our government, our dollar bills still say, in God we trust. Let's put our trust into the system we have. It is not a perfect system. In fact, this document says that we are constantly working to perfect our union. And yes, we're going through some troubling times. But I think with our efforts of getting involved, being part of the process, we are going to overcome what has consumed every aspect of our lives. And that is this wokeness, this narrative of government first over God first. Well, thank you for being with me today. Thank you for joining. As you saw in the comment section, I'd love to see, let me get to, I've got a couple minutes to hit upon this. Ryan, always appreciate you, buddy, in the chat. The national GOP has become lazy. He is right. We talked about that on Thursday's show, that they had 800 people for dinner up in Rosemont for the first gala, the statewide gala, and not once did they mention the front-running candidate for the nomination for president, Donald J. Trump. It's kind of sad. Ryan, endorsements don't move the needle as much as people think, and you're right. You know what moves the needle? My wife said it best way up above here. Door to door. People are thirsty or hunger for someone just to show up at their door, to talk to them, to inform them about what's going on. Will you get an occasional door slammed person? That's not a statement about you. That's a statement about them. I don't know what's affecting their lives that particular day. I just, when that happens to me, I quickly pause and say a prayer. I have their name because I have a list that I'm walking off of. and I say a prayer. I say a prayer for their household. Say a prayer for whatever they're encountering that day. And I pray. And I'm hopeful that, the next time someone comes around, that they might have a conversation with them. So you're right. Endorsements don't move the needle. My friend Joanne, always appreciate Joanne. Thanks for the show. Have a good night. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for all of you that come aboard. We're going to continue to do this. And if you missed the start of the show, we're going to be doing this live on the McLean County Republican Party site, because we've got a lot of people to get into studio and find out why it is they want to represent you and me in their given districts, county board districts, or as a state representative, or as a state senator, or as a congressperson. We need to hear from them. They need to talk to you. So go out, like, share, with everyone the DPB show, because we need to become your election and headquarters. And that is on us, right? We can't take it for granted that people are going to find out the information and about these candidates, about the voting process, and how to get involved. So if it's going to be, it's up to all of us. Hey, as always, I wish you guys the peace, a peace that surpasses all understanding. Until Thursday, I wish you all the best. So we're signing out for now. We'll be back Thursday from 4 to 5. Don't miss out, because we're going to have a couple special guests that are also running for office, and we'll put that up on our Facebook page and let you know who they will be. So until we meet again, farewell, my friends.